And more than 20 Florida counties have issued evacuation orders as Idalia approaches closer and closer. But one man is actually staying put to save his neighbors from what could be this catastrophic storm. Michael Pressley Bobbitt is one of about 100 people who stayed behind on Cedar Key. And this is a look at that area here. He says he's concerned about the handful of elderly residents who plan to ride out the storm and could likely get stuck when it's all over. He's also the official clam ambassador of Cedar Key, which is one of America's top clam producers. Michael joins us now from a stone Episcopal church, which serves as a fortress for people during the storm. Michael, good morning to you.
Hello. We hadn't made it to the church yet. I'm still at my house 1 block away.
Oh, okay.
But the waters are rising. There's an apocalyptic scene out there. Our entire boat ramp has been swallowed up. Our corner right there at G and First that meets the Gulf, where we just had our second annual shark swim to raise money for the school, that's completely underwater, and the waters are racing up the hill and swallowing up the downtown as we speak.
Now, how long have you lived in Cedar Key, and does this feel any different leading up to Idalia than other storms that you have prepared for in the past?
Sure. So I've lived here 3 years, but I've been coming every weekend for 20 years. I've never seen the water just rise out of the Gulf in such an angry way. We're used to storm surge here. We're used to the faraway end floods down there on G Street in an afternoon storm, but we're not used to it coming from all sides and just swallowing up everything. If we get even half of the storm surge that's predicted, Cedar Key, as we know it, it won't look like it 2 hours from now. It'll be unrecognizable.
Yeah,
and if we get all of it, yeah, I think we're in real trouble.
And speaking of real trouble, I was watching last night, forecasters were predicting that Cedar Key specifically was one of the most vulnerable spots. You're an island city just off the coast of Florida. But talk about your decision to stay behind because you're worried about neighbors. Have you done this before? And what's your game plan when it gets bad, Michael?
Sure. So it's ironic, but the fact that we're an island that's going to get cut off was one of the reasons why I felt like I needed to stay. There were some, there's always some number of islanders that are going to stay through a storm like this because that's just built into our DNA here. But there were some elderly and infirm neighbors of mine that I just could not talk into leaving. And I think that they didn't have a concept of what was coming. And because we're cut off, no help is coming. Our bridge is going to be completely underwater here in the next 2 hours. And I was concerned about folks just not having anyone to help. So I've got a few boats that if they don't get carried away by the surge, as soon as the surge stops and the wind stops, we'll be in those boats. Our streets here in Cedar Key are going to look like Venice, Italy, and the boat's going to be the only way to get to folks. Yeah. So we're going to go out. I was able to talk 2 elderly folks into leaving just before everything became impassable. So we're just going to do whatever we can. We're going to do whatever we can to help.
Yeah, I have ridden out a couple hurricanes in the past just as a correspondent, and the winds are wild. And often you talk to people, why aren't you leaving? People don't have the funds to leave and go to a hotel for days on end, the gas to leave. Also, as I mentioned off the top, too, you're the clam ambassador. Cedar Key has a multi-million-dollar clamming industry. How does one become the clam ambassador? And also, seriously, what kind of impact could the storm have on people who make their living, their bread and butter, off of that clamming industry?
Sure. So it would take a catastrophic direct hit to really, we grow our clams in bags that are staked down to the Gulf of Mexico. They don't often get unmoored and washed away, but we do see increased levels of death when the storms wash mud over the clams, and sometimes they blow around a little on our leases. So we're far less concerned about our clams than we are our residents here. And as far as how you become the clam ambassador, one day I just said I was a clam ambassador, and I've used that notoriety to help market our clam industry and our aquaculture industry, and it's just sort of taken off. And I use it to raise money for our school and a big charity event we have every year. It's just something I do to try to give back to this island that's given so much to me.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.